what kind of listening you think is best. And maybe you could talk about your podcast and generally as well. Like, do you think learners should be aiming for like a natural speaking speed, or maybe trying to go a bit slower if they're finding natural a bit hard, or does it not matter?
I guess it depends on the level of English of the person. So, if you're a low level, if you're a low level learner of English, then, it might be difficult to understand sort of natural speech. I guess ultimately the main thing is finding English listening that you are motivated to listen to, that you really want to listen to, that you find enjoyable. Because, okay, if we take my podcast as an example, so I do tend to speak pretty naturally and kind of quickly. I try to speak clearly, but I try not to separate words too much, Mm-hmm. I try to basically speak in the same way that I would normally speak, but I do enunciate fairly clearly. So speaking speed is probably normal. In order to understand that, you probably need, I don't know, intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced level English. But for those learners who are sort of pre-intermediate or elementary, it might be difficult for them to follow it, and the episodes are pretty long. But I have had people who they've told me, they've emailed me, they said, when I first started listening to your podcast, I didn't understand anything, or I understood just 15 or 20% of what you were saying. But for some reason, these people persevered. Mm-hmm. And I'm always impressed when I hear these stories that people continued listening. And I just kind of think, wow, that's amazing, because the real improvement comes through time and practice. There's no magic method, not necessarily a magic resource, except that you've got to look for a kind of English that you think is natural, right? But it's just time and practice, ultimately. And so whatever resource is going to make it easier for you to listen regularly and longer, then great. So I guess, yeah, but for very low-level listeners, it's probably a good idea to listen to something that's graded, something that's quite short, and then kind of work your way up, right? So BBC 6-Minute English is a good standard if you're, I would say, lower level, because they speak pretty slowly. Their stuff is scripted, which means that there are scripts, transcripts for everything they say. So for those low-level people, they can read the scripts and maybe take more time to understand the individual words, listen and kind of connect the words in the script to the words they're hearing, and kind of build it up that way. The issue for me with 6-Minute English is that I find it a little bit, what's the word for it? I don't want to say boring, because that's not very nice. But I find, because it's scripted, it feels a bit unnatural.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm coming from the position of a native speaker, that when I listen to it, it's a bit like playing the audio from a course book in class. I always cringe a little bit when I hear those audios, because it's actors and it's clearly been scripted in advance and it's inauthentic. And so I wonder if learners notice that. I guess it doesn't really matter for the lower level learners who are using 6-Minute English if it sounds a bit inauthentic, or if the voice acting isn't brilliant. It doesn't really matter.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rambling. I ramble a lot, Michael. I'm sorry.
That's good. No, that's like natural podcast thing, isn't it? Like I do that all the time, because I just get into the habit of talking for my podcast, and it bleeds over into everything else I do.
Yes.
But
yes.
I know what you mean. Like, if I think in Japanese, I think it's the same. Like, if I listen to like really, really basic, like scripted, hello, could I have a coffee, please? It's like, yeah, I'm kind of learning the vocabulary, but it's not that enjoyable. I think it comes back to what you said at the beginning about why you like podcasting, because it's just that natural conversation is just so pleasant to listen to, or like with the mistakes and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the real progress, it's hard to say where the real progress happens, because I'm sure plenty of people make really good progress and are very successful using those kinds of listening materials which are scripted and slow and not very edgy, you know. I mean, who am I to judge them? I think they're great resources, and I think many thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people have improved their English using resources like that. I guess what we have in English language learning is the privilege of variety and so many different options. So I think, you know, I'm not going to say that something like 6-minute English or even audio recordings from course books, you know, those sorts of things, I'm not going to say that they're bad or wrong or anything, because I think that's not true. I'm just saying, I guess I'm just being picky and saying that I guess that for some people, they will find it more engaging to listen to natural conversation, and that ultimately this lets people listen to things for longer periods of time. 6-minute English is good though. Also, the British Council have got some really good listening materials on their website, and the transcripts are very helpful. I would say, you know, a lot of people also use TV series, films, Netflix and stuff like that, which is great, again, if that's the thing that you're really motivated to use. But sometimes they're not the best resources, because listening to TV, films and stuff, it actually can be very hard to hear the English being used, because there's lots of sound effects, lots of noise, lots of music. The dialogue can be quite kind of unclear and a lot of mumbling. It's primarily a visual medium. And so it's not necessarily the best way to have language presented to you, because a lot of the time the language you're hearing is just incomprehensible. I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you. Even as a native English speaker, when I watch some films or TV series, I'm kind of like, huh, what are they saying? So yeah, again, it comes back to podcasts. I think they're a great resource because it's just you just get the voice. I think overall, I would say, pick things that you're actually interested in, okay, and listen regularly and for longer periods. And whatever the resource is that is going to keep you coming back, then good. But don't assume that you should... See, a lot of people, they think, okay, I need to improve my English. I need to listen to things. I'll listen to the news. And they listen to the news for 5 minutes and it's horrible and it's depressing and the language is really complicated and difficult and it's sort of very impersonal. And then they give up because it's just not enjoyable at all. I think it's probably a much healthier situation in language learning to listen to someone speaking directly to you in plain English, in a more conversational style, using the sort of English that you will probably be using too, because, you know, if you just listen to the news all the time, I mean, yeah, you might get good at reporting on events
in a very
but
formal
you might
way.
not. Yeah, you might, you know, so how are you, Michael? Oh, you know, just the classic joke of like, witness reports stated that I woke up late this morning, you know, and breakfast was consumed early, you know, earlier than reported, you know, all
There's
that
an
sort of
easterly
stuff.
wind today and
Exactly,
gale force.
yeah, exactly. And then at the end of the conversation saying, Michael, thank you. You know, just the conventions of English that you hear on the news is just not the sort of English that you would normally use in your life.
Yeah.
So people assume that they should listen to the news, or that they should watch Netflix, but there are other resources out there. So, you know, shop around, be selective, find something that you're really interested in. Hopefully something that will keep you coming back for more, and then just put the time in, listen long term. And if you're enjoying it, if it's really fun and you want to listen to the next thing, and you probably won't see the time passing, and then that's the sweet spot. When you're not really even aware that time is passing, that's the best. So if you pick an audio, like an episode of a podcast, and you think, oh, it's 60 minutes. I can't listen to that. You know, try listening to it, and ideally you'll just be into it, and it doesn't matter if it's 60 minutes. 60 minutes is in fact better, because that's even more listening. I don't know, be prepared to put the time in. But if you find stuff that's enjoyable and fun, then it'll be easy, I would say, and just regular practice. Don't expect results to happen immediately. Sometimes it takes time, but if you're enjoying the process, you won't even notice the time passing.
Yep. So I think it all comes back to fun, doesn't it? Fun is always going to be a key aspect of language learning.